Hi, today we're speaking to Duran De Villiers, an entrepreneur. How are you, Duran?
Hi, man. Well, and you?
I'm good, thank you. So, to start us off, how would you describe your journey from a 16-year-old to where you are today, and how has your life influenced the professions you've gone into?
It's quite a few years since I've been 16. But yeah, as I was mentioning a bit earlier, that I didn't really have a plan. I wasn't one of those kids who knew exactly, what I wanted to be when I grew up. I didn't want to be a doctor. I didn't want to be anything specific. So I just went through school, just as a normal kid. I was riding my bike a lot. And I guess, my journey from then to now is a lot based on necessity, having to do something. I never had the opportunity to study after school. I wasn't born into, wealth. So I really had to um, make my life, what it is for myself, I guess.
Absolutely. So, you mentioned that you didn't have a plan. How important is a plan in trying to achieve success?
I think it depends on what you want to do, right? I don't think you need a plan. I certainly didn't have a plan, as I mentioned. I still don't really have a plan for the next 5 years. I know more or less what I want to do, more short term. And again, everyone is very different. I think if you have something specific you want to achieve, then I think a plan is obviously very important. But if you're young and you're kind of getting into life and you're not quite sure what you want to do, I don't think a plan is that important. I think what's far more important is doing something. It doesn't really matter what, just do something because you'll learn out of that something and you'll go in a different direction. So moving forward is far more important than standing still and trying to work on a plan.
Absolutely. So, when looking back to yourself when you were 16, 17, or even 18, what was your first step towards becoming the entrepreneur you are today?
Um, Basically, just what I've mentioned, right? So just doing something. I finished school again, didn't have any real options. I started waitering to make ends meet, and then I started working for a church. Every opportunity that came up, I kind of took and I just did and I learned, and you just move from there. And I think if you do something, as I mentioned, you either enjoy it or you don't. So you learn something, and then that will inspire you to a different direction. And then, you kind of do steps on, and you just learn where you really want to go, what you're passionate about, what you really enjoy, what you don't enjoy. I'm a type of person I can get passionate about pretty much anything. If I put my hands to it and I get into it, I can get really excited about almost anything. And yeah, so I did photography, I did video, I got into media, and then that's how I got into the drone. I just, one thing led to another.
Yeah, and when talking about passions and what you enjoy, do you think it's very important to do what you enjoy and follow your own passion to try achieve success?
Yeah, again, I think it depends on the person. There's that famous saying, if you do what you love, you won't ever work a day in your life. That's true, and it's also not true. I think hard work is hard work, no matter if you're passionate about it or if you're not passionate about it. Working incredibly hard, making sacrifices, when your buddies are out, you know, doing whatever, you're in front of the PC or, you're crafting until early morning. Um, there's no way around hard work. It's easy for people to see the results, but hard work is hard work. I think it helps being passionate about something. I think if you're really interested in what you're doing, that definitely helps. But I don't think that's a key to success. I think it's a bonus, but not a key.
Are there any other fundamentals that people should try build within themselves to try achieve success before going into a business world or in the build up to becoming an entrepreneur?
Yeah, I think I kind of touched on that. I think it's more important, your question is, to build within yourself. I think that's far more important to be someone or be a person who has um, the ability to be interested in whatever comes their way, right? So, seeing the opportunity in something that someone else might not see. And being a person who can take something and build something and see something and make something out of nothing essentially, where someone else might see something and ignore it. I think that is far more important to build in yourself. Persistence in an idea and the ability to, I guess, see something and be able to get interested in something where other people might not. That's to me more important than having a cool plan or a business plan or something like that.
Absolutely. So there's a keyword which is almost opportunity. I imagine is finding an opportunity and capitalizing on that. What kind of opportunities do you see in this open world in the future that people can try capitalize on to try become successful in their lives?
Um, the world is changing very quickly. Um, from even in the last 10 years, there's so much that has changed, and opportunity changes along with that. And obviously, depending on the type of person you are, the type of business, the type of interests, the type of industry, there are different opportunities throughout. And the more smart people do things, the less opportunities become available, right? Because it becomes harder and harder coming up with a new idea. It becomes harder and harder coming up with a new business or a new product. So opportunities are almost like on the decline. So, you know, it, it's harder to it's harder to spot opportunities. um, but again, I think if you're in an industry or interested in something, or you're doing something, and it really doesn't matter what it is, there is opportunity within that. You just have to be able to do the due diligence, put the time in, and find it. But it is getting harder to find and create those opportunities.
Yeah, absolutely. And when looking at the modern world today compared to when you were a teenager, how has the opportunities and the business world shifted from 50 years ago, 40, 30 years ago compared to now?
Sure, I'm not that old. Um, yeah, I mean, the world is changed, like I said, a tremendous amount. I think online, the internet, social media has changed the way opportunities are found, I guess, and opportunities come to be in a lot of people's lives. You have YouTube, Mr. Beast. There are opportunities that 5 years ago, 10 years ago, no one thought would ever be possible. Making money on YouTube, for example, or social media. That's an opportunity that is new, and people are making a lot of money. Obviously, it's a overcrowded market as well. So there are pros and cons. But yeah, if you look at the more traditional aspects, engineering, medicine, those typically move a lot slower. Um, but yeah, the internet has really changed the way opportunities can be discovered as well. I find I spend a lot of time on YouTube and Google if I want to know something or learn about something, because everything is there. Like, in the entire world and the history of humankind basically is to be found on the internet. So if you want to know something, you can go find it there. So yeah, I think the internet has been a huge change in opportunities.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to switch a topic more towards your first business, which is Motion Pixel, which you started at a very young age. What inspired you to become an entrepreneur and then embark on your journey at such a young stage in your life?
Yeah, so as I said before, nothing really told me, to become an entrepreneur. I've never really thought myself um, as an entrepreneur. I've just done what I've had to do, right? So I didn't have the opportunity to study. I needed to make money, and I had a passion for media, right? So for photography and video. So I figured, well, let me use this and start a media production company. Called it Motion Pixel. And again, I started, I mean, I literally, I bought my first camera on a Tuesday. I didn't have a lens for it, so I had to borrow a lens. And that weekend, I did my first wedding. So I wasn't trained. I just jumped in the deep end. I bought a camera and I did my first wedding. And I've done 150 professional photography weddings since then, when I was still doing the media. And then that leads on to the video and then television production. That's how I met Mark. The Otto African Trail Run, and a lot of the super sports stuff and the adventure racing stuff we've done with them. Um, and it just grows. You start one thing and you expand in that. So I never really said I'm going to be a business owner or entrepreneur. I just did one thing to make ends meet, and I have a natural knack for business, I guess, and for marketing. And again, you only discover that when you actually do it. A lot of people wait to discover it, and then they first want to discover it and then do it. But you first have to do it and then you discover it.
And is there a level of importance in getting started in the business world at an early stage to try and discover that and do that sort of thing, to discover that you have a business mind and a business thing, to try develop that, the correct fundamentals in your head to try and become a successful person in the years to come?
Yeah, for sure. I think your question is, as a young person, um, to try and get into that. Yeah, I mean, if and when I have kids, they will, spend less time at school and more time learning about the world and,
Yeah.
creating a business or starting a business. And I think um, any person who exposes themselves to the world out there and to things that they don't know about, the more your chances are of discovering what you're really meant to do. For me, for example, I went through life and only later in life I discovered aviation. And that was, what I was meant to do. I was born to fly, I was born to be an aviator. I'm a helicopter pilot, I'm a fixed wing pilot, I fly paramotors, anything that can fly, I fly, and I'm super passionate about it. But it took me a while to discover that. And if I didn't actually take the step to go fly, I wouldn't have, discovered that. And that's the same with business and anything else in life. You have to put yourself out there to discover that with what you're made to do.
Absolutely. So you mentioned school and the fact that when you have children, if you do have children, you're going to try push them to be more, follow their passions and driven in a business sense rather than in a school sense. How crucial is school to achieving success?
I'm probably the wrong person to ask. I don't think school is important at all currently, because two things: the world has changed, and the other one is school hasn't changed. Obviously, there are
Yeah.
schools here and there that have adapted with the times, but generally speaking, even the concept of going to primary school, going to high school, going to university, that largely is unchanged. While the world is changing so rapidly, in the
Yeah.
last 10 years, we've gone from CDs to DVDs, and now we don't even know what those things are anymore. But school has remained the same. People are still reading the same books in the school here that I read, 20 years ago. It doesn't make any sense. So I don't think school is as important as it used to be. I think the social aspect of school is very important. And I think, interacting and mingling and discovering who you are, that's all part of it. But you don't learn much in school. So yeah, I'm probably the wrong person
No, no.
to ask in terms of advice to go to school, because I'll always say, I'd rather have someone, if I again have children, I think there'll be a school aspect, but I'd much rather have them, come with me to the office and learn the real world and have fun while doing that and interact. Um, but the solid traditional school experience, I think, is so outdated.
Yeah, I mean, you aren't actually the wrong person to ask because I couldn't agree with you more. I really couldn't. I mean, I think you are right about it being outdated, and there are more important things to focus on to try and become successful in the next 20 years of a teenager's life, etc. So I have a few questions on the school system. One is, what would you change about the school system to try and make it effective for students as a whole?
So it's been a while since I've been in school, so I'm not up to date with what they've changed and what's actually happening, in the typical school. And when I mean typical, I mean where the majority of kids are going to school. You obviously have different types of schools and private schools and public schools, but as a whole, I think your question is, what has to change? I think it has to adapt with the rest of the world, because largely, and again, I might be outdated myself in terms of what is happening in school, but I think um, the traditional way of what is being taught and how it's being taught, and also the traditional outlook from the parents. So they went to school, so their kids will go to school. We went to university, so my kids will go to university. That is such a also an outdated way of looking at the world. Since a parent went to school, there might be 20, 30 years elapsed before their kids go to school. um, and the world has changed a tremendous amount in 20 or 30 years. So there's a lot that has to change. I am not a school expert, so I wouldn't really know.
I completely agree with you. And we're discussing school. If not focusing on school to develop the correct character to become successful, what should we focus on as a whole to try and become a successful individual?
YouTube, Google. When I say YouTube and Google, that's a source of information. I'm not talking about the entertainment aspects. while there is some merit in a lot of those, but I think if you're into something, let's say photography, you're into photography now, you want to learn more about photography, maybe it's for you, maybe there's a career in photography. So, just YouTube and Google, the amount of information you can find and learn and study and acquire on photography, for example, is endless. You can spend thousands of hours on one topic, and you can learn a tremendous amount of how to do it better, how to get into it, how to make a business, how to become involved in the industry. So and that's one aspect, and you can apply that to pretty much any other aspect or industry or hobby or passion. um, it's just give yourself tools to expand, and then eventually you'll discover what you want to do. I'm obviously speaking from my personal experience. A lot of people know what they want to do. They have some form of idea or plan. They want to do this or that. Those two tools, Google and YouTube and others, are still incredibly valuable to push you into those, the things you actually want to do.
Absolutely. So there are a few things you're dealing with here, which is what the type of student school produces and what type of person you want to be is in the next 20 years of your life as a teenager. So what about university? Because the constant formula is go to school, then go into a good university, and then get a job. What are your thoughts about university as a whole?
So it'll be pretty much the same as school, but I think school is a fundamental place as a young person growing up and socializing. I think university is a completely waste of time unless you want to do something. You want to be a doctor, you have to go study to be a doctor, right? You're not going to go, you know, teach yourself how to do that on YouTube or Google. So I'm not saying that. I'm saying if you want to be, to me, the worst is people don't really know what they want to be. So they go study a BCom in marketing and business, right? Which means absolutely nothing. You find a job in whatever realm, um, and you begin so you spent your entire school career, and now you spend X amount of years in university, and you leave university and you join the world at the very 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 bottom. I don't understand it. Again, I never went to university, so I am talking about my a very specific side from my point of view. But having a lot of friends who went to university when I didn't, and even now today, you see a lot of people and kids going to university. They spend so much time and so much money. They spend more time socializing than actually learning anything. And they get out of university, they get a basic job, and then they're at rock bottom. And then they really have to start that discovery, what they actually really want to do, when they could have done that, out of high school, even in high school.
Yeah, absolutely. So in terms of university, and I've also been having this argument with my parents on my side regarding whether I should go to university, and I have a similar opinion to you. If not university, what should the next step be after high school?
Um, Again, I think it's very specific to the person. If the person has an idea or a passion or a project or a business idea that they want to work on, that's what they should do, right? They should focus all their time and effort on that and make it happen. If it doesn't happen, they're going to learn more than the typical university student in that whole process. And if it does happen, bonus, that they've actually achieved something, and they can grow that, right? So it really depends on the person. There's no specific rule. A lot of people are content and happy with going to university and then slotting into a job and then doing that for the rest of their lives, right? But I don't think your podcast is aimed at those type of people. Those type of people aren't going to tune in and listen to this in the first place, right?
Yeah.
It's people who really want to find out this information, who want to learn and want to grow, who listen to these kind of things. So, there are alternatives to university. Go straight into a job. You don't need university. You need experience, you need skill, you need, an attitude of, I really want to learn. And these days people are looking for that more than your basic degrees, which everyone has.
Yeah, and we're mentioning the lessons that university teaches us, which are largely missing the experience part, which I also agree with you. I mean, I'm going to use me as an example, is building a podcast and just actually diving into how to be successful, and before even leaving school is much more beneficial than waiting another 6 years until I reach 24 years old and finish a degree to try then get a job and do the average person's life cycle, or whatever you want to call it. when looking at your life and your experiences, what lessons have you learned during your entrepreneurial journey that you think universities won't teach you?
Experience, right? Like, I think you said it. In our company, we've hired engineers that are out of university. They've 1 or 2 years out of university. They have some basic experience, and we employ them as engineers, and they don't last very long because they actually have no practical knowledge. They learn this very traditional thing in university, but they can't apply it. They lack serious experience. So, you study, let's say, I don't know, what, 4 years for a basic degree in engineering. In 4 years, the amount you can learn on the job, in a job, at an actual engineering firm, even if you start at the bottom, if you're eager enough and willing, you show your willingness to the people who employ you, I promise you, you'll work your way up much further than coming out university. And again, nothing stops anyone from learning that stuff themselves. I am not a, a aeronautical engineer because I went to university, but I certainly am an aeronautical engineer by trade. I've been doing this for the last decade and a bit, and I know a lot because I've made it my job to know as much as I can about a certain topic. And you can get that, as I said, on YouTube, Google. There's so many other aspects. Obviously, there are standards and things have to be built in and designed and done the right way. But that information is all accessible. You don't have to go to university to learn that.
Yeah, and is there any other advice you would give to teenagers or young adults who aspire to start their own business, regardless of whether they're in university or out of university?
Yeah, I think I was thinking about it a bit earlier. There's, I guess, there's a question. What do you want to do? Do you want to become very wealthy, or do you want to run a business and a company? Because there's two ways to I guess package what you want to achieve as a young person. And there's different ways to make money, right? So you can develop a product and develop a company and run and develop that product. But if you're starting out and you're interested in business, for example, more than the actual, if you're a business person and not an engineer will develop a product, they'll create a business around that product and they'll sell that product, right? So, but if you're a business person and you're interested in business, you look at it slightly differently. Your business is a product. So there's a product within a product. So the business needs a product or a service to sell. But if you look at from a perspective of a business, eventually you can sell that business. And that's where the real money is. There's a finite amount of money selling a service or selling a product. There's a different type of money involved when you actually package and build a company to sell. It takes a bit more work, it takes a bit more time. So there's different aspects of looking at that. But based on your question, advice I'd give to young people starting out, I think have an idea of what you want to actually do. Do you want to run a business, or do you want to be a business person making money and being more on the investor side?
Yeah, and you be both?
For sure, for sure. I guess I started a business, based on a product, and then eventually I built that business to a point where it was very attractive to investors, and then I sold part of that business, right? And doing more of those kind of things moving forward. So you can do both. I don't think you can do both at the same time very well. You either have to focus on one or the other. But yeah, you can definitely do both.
Yeah, and we've dealt with a few things. So the one thing is creating a doer mindset. I'm going to say a doer mindset, which is you must just do it rather than waiting 6 years to try to get out of university. The other thing is consistency, and consistency is one of those things which obviously you know of, which is just keep going, keep learning, keep doing this stuff instead of waiting all this time going through the educational system. How important is consistency in achieving success?
I think it's incredibly important, and I don't think a lot of people realize how much work and how much time it often takes to create, success. Success obviously is relative to whoever, everyone sees that term as different because you can have financial success, you can have success in life, you can have lifestyle success. But consistency is super important. You need to be able to stick to something and do it for a period of time before you're actually going to reach success. It took me it took me years to get to a place where I could really see success in a company. It took me about a decade to actually do that. And I guess in today's generation, they want things to happen, very quickly. So um, it's important. It's important to realize that, to build something of substantial value, it does take time.
Yeah, absolutely. And we chatted about the educational system and etc. And in terms of technology, which you mentioned earlier, how do you stay ahead of the curve when it comes to technology?
That's hard, right? So depending on the industry, if I look at our industry, so we design and build flying machines basically, and they're quite complex, and they're technologically fairly advanced. But you're never the only person in the world doing what you're doing. There's always someone else who's doing it, and often they're doing it better. Um, and the question obviously is, how do you stay better than them? It takes a lot of work. It takes, again, it all boils down to work and time. Putting the time in, doing your research, and if you look at any successful person, they have done more than the next person. Elon Musk. People look at Elon Musk, they look at the work and the Tesla and SpaceX. Um, they don't realize how much time he puts into it. There often there are articles about how much time he actually works. Nowadays I think he works a bit less, otherwise he'd probably kill himself. But he put in the hours, and I can see that, in the when I started working, I don't work that much anymore. Again, because I've been doing that for quite a while now. But in the beginning, there were times I would work until 1, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning for years, and it takes time and it takes effort to do that. So yeah, I think especially the new generation, they don't often realize how long it actually takes to build something substantial.
Yeah, and we only have 24 hours in a day as well. So time is one of those things which it goes by very quickly and very easily. So for someone in school who's trying to build a business, and I'm talking about me in particular because this is obviously I'm taking advice from you at the same time. Obviously, I'm trying to show other entrepreneurs who are young as well and learning from you, but at the same time, I'm also bouncing off your ideas, etc. Should I be focusing more on school or 50-50 it, or should I just not drop school but balance school and then spend hours and hours and hours trying to build a business and a product? Where should I find the balance between school and the product?
Um, so I have to be careful how I how I answer you, right? Um, so the one side of me says drop out of school and pursue whatever you want to pursue 100%, because if ROI, return on investment, what is your return on investment going to be from school? Yeah, you might get a degree, you might get a matric or whatever it is, but that's not going to give you anything in actual life. Um, if you focus 100% on whatever project you are busy with, that, in my, again, my very personal opinion, that's going to get you a lot further down the line, even if it's the wrong or the wrong thing. To me personally, and again based on my experience, I still think it's the better option. Life is very short. I it feels like yesterday I was in school and I just left school. I'm 38 years old now, and it goes by like this. There's no time to waste. There's no time to um, and about decisions. Just go for it. Go for it. Make a decision. Stick with that decision. Uh, you really have to mess it up to go really wrong. And if you have your parents' support, obviously that helps. So I didn't have my parents' support for a couple of those things and decisions I made, but I'm still glad I made them.
Yep, absolutely. And you've been recognized as one of Forbes 30 most promising young entrepreneurs in Africa. First of all, congratulations for that. And how has this recognition impacted your career and the growth of these companies?
So as I said, I'm 38, so that's quite a while ago. That specific award. There've been various awards. There was I think a 40 under 40 as well, and the 30 under 30 with Forbes. And again, I think with the company and the business and the type of product, there've been various awards. But it's nice to have the recognition for doing something different and unique in an industry. I try not let it, I guess, get to your head. It's easy for things to get to your head. But I mean, these are small little awards. Nothing. It's not a Nobel Peace Prize or something. Really significant and making a change in the world, which I'm always driven to. I always feel no matter what I've done, I always feel like I haven't actually achieved anything, because you always look at, again, Elon Musk, and I'm a massive SpaceX fan, not really an Elon Musk fan. I'm a fan of what they've achieved. So you compare yourself to them, and I've done absolutely nothing. So um, I look at an award like that, and exactly that. I think there's so much more that I can still do. There's so much more that I still want to do. It's nice getting recognition, and often, friends and family or people who want to visit the premises or our company, and we walk them around, and I show them the facility. People are blown away about what we do, and you don't often see that. So I guess it's similar, from a external perspective, for people to see what we actually do is it's quite cool.
Yeah, and I'm going to discuss fear now, because fear is also one of those things that people might be dealing with when it comes to entrepreneurship and building a business. And I'm included. I mean, I'll be more than scared to drop out of school and start a business now, just in case it becomes a disaster and then I fail and all that sort of stuff. How can individuals go around fear to try captivate or take control of their situation in building success?
Um, I think that's also very specific to the individual. Obviously, you have different people handle fear differently. I'm not really scared of much, in terms of, when I say that, it's not an ego thing. I don't mind making a decision or taking the risk. Um, and I guess you get better at making this type of decisions, and risking things. You get better at it because you get better at negotiating in your mind, or mitigating that risk to a point. But no matter what you do in life, there's always going to be a risk, right? There's When I go out and drive somewhere, there's risk. There's risk in absolutely everything we do. Um, so I guess, to me personally, I just try and see the world as a really big place, and everyone has risks. There's risk involved with everything. So at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. So then fear is almost canceled out. It's hard, like, I guess, hard to explain, but everyone experiences fear differently. But it's not really the fear; it's the risk. You can get rid of the fear if you actually just look at the science behind it and the math, and if the plan makes sense, then fear is irrelevant, right?
Yep.
But it depends on the person. It depends on the project, and yeah, I can imagine. It is scary. Um, I think back, we used to, when we started, working in the kitchen counter, and then I was like, we need a bigger premises. We need to move into this place, and it's much bigger. And we don't need all the space, but we need to expand. So there's, I guess, fear involved with making those kind of decisions. But again, you kind of mitigate it. And the worst case is, okay, we'll just have to move back and work from the counter again. But if you don't make that decision, you'll never expand, and you'll never, learn what you're actually capable of doing.
Yep. And has there ever been a time where risk has gone wrong, and how have you been able to overcome this? I'm not going to call it a failure, because I think it's more of a lesson, or just a thing in the road where you have to almost get away from it. And how have you been able to overcome this risk or dangerous circumstance per se?
Dangerous circumstance. To be honest, I think I've been very blessed, very lucky, um, in the business sense, to not really have had any major, failures or downfalls in terms of the business side. I think for me, it was a personal downfall. I was so focused on building a business, and doing the right things, that my personal life kind of fell apart. Other than that, in terms of the business, uh, yeah, as I said, you kind of get better at making those decisions. And a small failure, I guess, is a little better than a big failure. But the more you move forward, you learn, and then the next decision you have to make, you always think back about the previous one. But again, if you haven't made any decisions, you don't have any kind of backlog to base
Yeah.
your decision on. So the more experience you have, the better you are at making decisions forward. But um, I don't think people should be that scared of failure either, because again, you're learning, right? You're learning, and you're moving forward.
Yep, absolutely. And you mentioned earlier that success varies from person to person. What is your personal definition of success?
I'm still I'm still figuring that one out. Um, to me, obviously, the traditional or typical. success is for a lot of people is just money, right? So how much money you've made, or how much money you're making, or how much your business is worth. To me, I'm really trying to find a good balance of um, living my life in terms of a lifestyle, being able to have the time. And yeah, so I've worked incredibly hard for 10, 11, 12 years of my life and I started really early. I started when I was basically, 18, 19. And at the beginning of this year, I essentially retired. I stepped out of the company. I resigned as a CEO. And I'm early retirement. Not that I'm going to stop working, and there's still so much that I want to do. But at 38, I don't, I can take some time and I can do things, go flying. And uh, I think that to me is success, being able to live your life the way you really want to. And yeah, sure, there's sacrifices and time you have to put into to achieve that. But I think a fine balance of, and that's why I live in Niza, right? Because we have the water. We just today we spent our day flying the helicopter up in the snow. We landed in 2 feet of snow, and we had snowball fights, and you just can't do that anywhere. So it's really just being able to go out in the boat and enjoy life while you have it, not retire at 60. That to me never made sense. People work until they're 60 or 70, and then they want to try and enjoy their lives, which are basically over already.
Yeah, absolutely. And have you achieved the success? And what is the next step in your journey to continue achieving the success, or to hopefully achieve it in the next 10, 20 years?
Um, yeah, I'm still figuring that one out as well. Like I said earlier on, I don't really have a plan. But having built a business, having sold a stake of that business and done fairly well, I've learned a lot in terms of um, the overall business perspective, in terms of building something substantial of value, selling it on, and then doing something new and something different. I'm very much a person. I need to do new things all the time. Although I've built the same business over the last 10 years, um, what I'm trying to say, I think to me, the next step is continuing with this business, but then also I really want to start. I don't think I'm ready yet. I'm going to take a bit of a break now for maybe a year or so and kind of formulate what I'm going to do next. So honestly, I don't quite know. But I definitely have learned a lot from how to package a business and how to, um, yeah, just build something of value so that someone else will be interested in buying that as a whole, as a product, but it's a business. Um, Basically, I have no idea.
And you mentioned that you've learned a lot about how to build and package a business. What is the most important lesson that you've learned?
Um, I think there are a few good lessons and a few most important lessons. One of them is to put a good team together. I've been really blessed and I guess lucky as well to be able to find really good people. Because starting out, it was just me, my ex, and one or two other guys, and you're 4 people, but I think we're close to 60 people now full time, and you can't do everything yourself. If the business grows, you need to get other people who
Yeah.
can help you, right? And can run the business. Getting the right people, getting the right management, and getting a specific culture. Every company is different. Corporates are obviously very different to startups, and startups are different to tech companies, and everyone is different. You have your own culture, but I think um, out of the few very important things, having a very good team, I think is crucial.
Absolutely. And then to end us off, if you could go back and say one thing to your 16-year-old self, what would that be?
Don't change anything. um, yeah, I mean, I often think of that. Would I actually change something? I don't think I would. I'm very, very happy. I'm very blessed. I've met some incredible people, and I've had hardships as well. My marriage fell apart, and but I wouldn't change anything. It's your life, and you live it, and you experience things, and good comes from bad. So yeah, I'd probably just go back and say, just just enjoy it all, and take it all in. But yeah, I don't think I wouldn't say anything to change the outcome, right?
Amazing. Well, thank you so much. And I really do appreciate you joining me. Yeah. Thank you.
Not a problem. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to that episode of Greater Podcast with Duran De Villiers. See you next time.